my show. Today I'm going to be talking about value, specifically value of large exclusives. How do you tell if a large exclusive is a good value? And why is this an important time to talk about it? Because what just came out? That's right, what just came out is the new big gigantic Millennium Falcon for $800. Is it a good value? How do we know? Let's see if we can find out. I just spent an hour and a half this morning trying to get mine ordered online because the website just wouldn't cooperate. But I finally got my order through, so it's coming. I'm excited. Did I overspend? Was it a good value? I don't know. Let's find out. When you first think about value for a big set, what do you first think about? What's the easiest to calculate? A lot of websites, a lot of people will say, what is the price per piece? We have an $800 Millennium Falcon. It has 7,541 pieces. A touch more than 10 cents a piece. That's a good value. Is that the right way to do it? And the answer is no. Price per piece is a terrible way to assess value of a set. Go ahead and look at the scatter plot that I put up of all the LEGO exclusives that are currently offered, including the Millennium Falcon up there at 7,541 pieces. That data is pretty scattered. It's hard to assess whether any one of those sets really is a good value. Pay particular attention to those sets at $200. See how there's a big line of sets at $200? And if we throw up the piece counts of those sets, you have at 1,600 pieces, the Minecraft Village. At 2,670 pieces, the LEGO Carousel. And I actually have that here. Here's the LEGO Carousel at 2,670 pieces. Which one is a better value? Well, if you just look at piece count, boy, this one is a much better value, right? It has 1,000 more pieces for the same price. And I don't have the Village, but I do have the TIE Fighter here. So I'll bring the TIE Fighter in. And it has 1,685 pieces, very similar to the Minecraft Village. So let's compare these. Which is a better value? You have 1,000 more pieces here. You have the same price. You have a licensed theme. You have an unlicensed theme. This may suffer from there being lots of TIE Fighters. This may suffer from there being a bigger carousel and a smaller carousel. It's sort of sandwiched in between. You have the Grand Carousel and the Winter Village Carousel sandwiched in between. And you can see that price per piece graph just doesn't help you determine which one really is a better value. So what's better to use than price per piece? What's better to use for price per piece, if you just want to look at the straight value, if LEGO is charging you a fair amount, is price per pound. Because if you've built any of these sets, you know that LEGO could have combined in many steps 2 pieces into 1 piece. I'm willing to bet that LEGO could cut 10% off of any piece count of any large exclusive if they wanted to. But what you can't hide is the weight of the set. So look at the scatter plot of the weight of the set. Notice how that data really tightens up. Even the Millennium Falcon way up there at 33 pounds. How does it fit? We can't quite tell. But let me flip back and forth a few times. Price per piece, price per pound. Price per piece, price per pound. Notice how much tighter that data is. And notice how those $200 sets that were way spread out at each end have compressed into the middle of that weight data. So it describes it much better. And what we can do with this data is throw in a best fit line. So do an analysis of the data and throw in a line, which is there. And you can see in general with that best fit line, that means everything above that line is maybe not such a good value. And everything below that line maybe is a better value. And notice where the Millennium Falcon lands, right on that line. So assessing whether it is a good value or not in terms of the weight of the set, it's right on the line. It seems like it is a very fair value, even though it's $800, but it's 33 pounds, by far the biggest set that LEGO's ever made. And you can see it's right on that best fit line. And just in case you're curious, this was sort of a back of the envelope sort of thing. I didn't do a rigorous analysis of this data, but it has an R-squared value of 0.94, which means in general, 94% of the variability of those prices of those sets is explained by this single line. Now, it doesn't describe it exactly, because of course there are variations. There's how many minifigures there are. Are there motors? Is there a license to pay for? And notice which one is way, way out there. And that is the $500 2016 Death Star. It's way, way above that line. So maybe it isn't such a good value. So let's come back to these sets. Does any of this data explain to you whether each one of these sets would be a better value than the other? And the answer is no. This data is really good for just your general knowledge of, is Lego charging me a fair price? And in general, because of how accurate that best fit line is, in general, yes, Lego follows a pretty linear model of pricing, and most of the sets fall relatively close to that line. So in general, they are charging historically a fair value. Now we know that Lego is expensive, but it is what it is. So this value data really doesn't help you in the long run to determine the value of a set. It's good for complaining about, though. It's good for saying, oh, this really is a good value, but that's about it. So if you're a collector, is the new Millennium Falcon a good value? Well, is spending $800 a good value compared to maybe buying 4 different $200 sets? That's something you have to decide for yourself. Is the value of building that set involved with the time you get to spend with your kid, the time you get to spend with yourself, the time you get to spend with it on the shelf, if you have a spot for it, looking at it? That's more where the value is in a set, and you don't really have to worry about a lot of this other stuff. If you're more on the investor side, the value becomes more about the desirability after it's retired, not about how much it weighs or how many pieces it has. It has to do with the desirability. How long it was out has a huge effect. How many people want it has a huge effect. So let's look at a few examples of retirements from 2015. So in 2015, we had the Red 5 X-Wing, we had the Tumbler, and we had the Tower of Orthanc all retire. They're all $200 sets. I have them up there. Look at their pieces. Huge variation in the number of pieces, huge variation in the number of weight. On the surface of it, the Tower of Orthanc seems like it's a much better value than all the others. It weighs a lot more. It has a ton more pieces. But did it perform better? Well, how do you know for the long-term value whether one's going to perform? You have a Star Wars license, you have a superhero license, and you have a Lord of the Rings license. All have their followers, all have their devotees outside of the Lego world. Who wants to have these sets? Well, look at the prices now. Which one has done the best? Well, the one right in the middle. The Tumbler has done the best. What outlier maybe made the Tumbler do great? Maybe it was all because of the Heath Ledger minifigure. Could we have determined that from any of this objective data? No, probably not, because it doesn't have very many minifigures, yet one of the minifigures is really valuable. So when determining this long-term value as an investor, you really have to make some educated guesses. So let's go back to these sets. TIE Fighter, there have been lots of TIE Fighters out, lots of different TIE Fighters. Do you think this TIE Fighter is going to be a needed set if someone collects TIE Fighters? Maybe, maybe not. Do you think this carousel is going to be a needed set? Well, maybe it depends on how popular the fairground line comes with the fairground mixer, with the carousel, with the Ferris wheel. It's hard to know ahead of time. That's where some of your intuition has to come in as an investor. And just for fun, I'm going to throw up a couple more sets that retired in 2015, and that is the AT-AT and the Star Destroyer play sets. You can see much fewer pieces, many fewer pieces, weighs a lot less, but look at their prices, right up there with the others, both over $200. But notice that the AT-AT with fewer pieces and less weight, less plastic, smaller set, cheaper set, is worth more than the Star Destroyer, which is a bigger set, heavier set, more expensive set. So that's again showing that that data of weight and pieces really doesn't have an effect for the long-term value of a set. So that brings us back to the Millennium Falcon. Should you buy it? Well, I bought one. It only took me an hour and a half of clicking on the Lego website before I finally got my order through. So I'm excited for it to come. Should you buy it? Well, as a builder, as a collector, I think it's an easy buy. As an investor, boy, you got to wait for some sales. I think it's just so expensive, and who knows how long it's going to be on the market. So I hope I enlighten you a little bit about things to think about when you're looking at these big sets. For the small sets, this value issue is a completely different animal. I'll go over that again another time. But until next time, Lego on.